Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much for writing in about Mindy. Look, at Mindy's age, she's definitely too young to start transitioning onto adult food. Not only do puppies need certain nutrients as they're growing, they need different ratios of those nutrients. So it's really important that she does stay on a growth formula or a puppy food, at least until she's around 8 to 10 months old, preferably until she's 12 months old. Smaller breeds like the Maltese can start that transition a little bit earlier, whereas larger or giant breeds really need that growth formula for at least the first 12 months of their life, sometimes even up to 18 months. Now, there could be a couple of reasons why Mindy suddenly decided she doesn't want to eat the food she's been on. It could be that as her growth rate is starting to slow down, that she's not actually needing as much of that food as she used to. So if she's still eating some of it, particularly first thing in the morning, you might want to look at reducing her portions or perhaps cutting out the third meal. So perhaps she might be ready to switch to having just a morning and an evening meal, while most dogs at 4 months are still having 3 meals a day. If she's just flat out refusing the food, the first thing you really need to do is get her checked by your vet to make sure that there's nothing physical going on, making sure she's fit and healthy. Now, provided she's got a clean bill of health, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret. Dogs aren't born picky and they're not necessarily born to be overweight. We often teach them these things, either by offering them something really tasty if they don't want to eat their regular food, or by worrying that they've skipped the odd meal and then trying to get them to eat if they don't want to. Every now and then, they may not want to eat purely because they don't feel hungry. And so long as that's not a regular occurrence, there's nothing really to be worried about there. But by pushing them to eat when they're not hungry, that can teach them to continue that habit as they get older. Now, if your dog decides they don't want to eat their food and then you offer them something that's delicious, like freshly cooked chicken, something tasty like that, well, dogs are pretty clever. And they will quickly learn that all they need to do is refuse their food and they'll get offered something tastier. Now, when it comes to puppies, of course, we don't want to risk them going without food for very long. So if your puppy refuses to eat their food, but they're otherwise bright, happy, and healthy, take up their food, seal it up, and then offer it to them 2 or 3 hours later. If they're still not wanting to eat it, take it up again, and then 2 or 3 hours later, offer them the food a third time. If they're still refusing that food, then we might want to take a few extra steps to try to encourage them to eat. That might include mixing in something a little bit tastier, perhaps drizzling a little bit of a dog-friendly bone broth over the top, or we might need to look at some alternatives for their food. That could involve switching to a wet food, a different brand, or something like a fresh frozen food, which I'm a huge fan of. Avoid offering them too many choices at once. Yes, they need a healthy and balanced diet, but they really don't need a buffet. I'm going to pop some links down below to some of our recommended foods that you might want to have a bit of a look at. But the important thing is make sure that there's not a physical or health issue stopping her from eating. Avoid offering her too many tasty alternatives that she'll start to become picky. And don't stress if she does occasionally skip a meal. So long as it's not a daily occurrence, the odd skipped meal isn't too big a worry. But if you'd like to talk about this in a little bit more detail, head on over to pangovet.com and you can make an appointment to speak to one of our vets one-on-one.